Hello YouTube, I'm here with Randy's family and we are going to be talking about what happened to him and their thoughts and concerns on his case. Randy Casey, also known as Bubba, was discovered with a head injury consistent with a firearm discharge in his home. His death was ruled an attempt on his own life, but his family doesn't believe this. The weapon used was found clean on his bed, which they find suspicious. His ex was the only witness, and they don't believe the story that she tells. In the 911 call, they believe that she lied to law enforcement when they asked if she touched the weapon.
Hello, Pickens 911. All right, what's going on?
He's bleeding in the floor. He's hurt his head.
What is your name?
Jessica Casey.
Jessica Casey? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you said y'all were arguing beforehand?
They were fussing.
Okay. And you said the gun is where it fell and you haven't touched it, right?
Yes.
Randy was found laying down here on the ground next to the wall. The gun case was allegedly located in Jessica's vehicle. No fingerprints were ever done. Basically, no investigation was done. This is what his family tells me, and they are very concerned with this, and they want answers. They loved Bubba very, very much, and they have created a GoFundMe, which you can donate to when you finish this video and learn more about what happened.
Randy is my brother. October the 2nd, 2020, we had got a phone call. My nephew that was living with him actually had stayed the night with us prior, and he had went over there to get some clothes, and he had saw the cops in his yard, and he called me and he's like, Amber, there's a lot of cops in my car. He said, you know, I see somebody. He's like, but I don't know where Daddy is. I'm like, well, baby, pull up and see what's going on. So he pulled up and said that his dad they had told him there had been an incident, his dad had been shot, and we needed to get to Kennestone as soon as possible.
Did you see him at the hospital?
Yes, me and his older son, Michael. They didn't want us to let us see him, but I was not leaving until I actually got to see my brother. I didn't know what to expect. They did say that he had a gunshot wound to the head, and they tried everything they could, but he just couldn't sustain blood pressure. Well, the lady that informed us that he had passed told me that it would be best for me not to see him, but it was such a shock, I guess, that I really couldn't comprehend what she was saying at the time. So I insisted that I not leave until she take me to him. So his oldest son was there, and he agreed to go with me. So she walks us to a room, to this, and it was just a big room with just bright is all I can remember the room looking like. And she said that she would give us our privacy. We just wasn't allowed to touch him. As we walked in, they had him laying on a hospital bed. He was on a pillow. His hands was wrapped in white. He had a white sheet over him. His eyes were open, one of them. There was one swelled shut, but other than that, he looked like my brother. I didn't see any gunshot wound. It didn't dawn on me that there was not a gunshot wound. I guess I was just in shock. I just needed to know that it was him before I actually left the hospital. The next day, we went to his house. The one that was there that called 911, it was his wife at the time. They had been split up for 6 or 8 months. She was the one that called 911. She still had his phone. She had called us after we had left the hospital and said that Randy had shot himself in the head. Well, we didn't know anything else. We didn't hear anything from the law enforcement or anything. The next day, his wife got pulled over and she was arrested for DUI. We had to get her out of jail that following Monday before we could make funeral arrangements. So we had not spoken to the police or anything. So we had no clue that there was never an investigation done, nothing prior to this. We went to his house the following day, which was on a Saturday. My husband went in first there, and he noticed that it had not been marked as a crime scene. There was a blanket laying in the floor where Randy had actually been unalived on the blanket. There were bloody clothes on the floor. There was, he found the bullet that went through his head under the bed. But he cleaned everything up and put it in a trash bag before me and my parents went into his bedroom, so we didn't have to see it. Jessica.
How many years were they together?
They were married for 7 years at the time this occurred.
7 years.
They had been split up around 6 to 8 months, and in the police report, it actually states on the police report that her and her boyfriend had gotten into an argument the night before, so she went to Randy's house to reconcile for the children. They had 2 younger children together. The youngest one had just turned 2 in July, and the oldest one was 6 at the time.
I want to say it changed way before this incident because, drugs and everything. I felt like I lost my sister a long time ago, but I definitely look at her differently now, and it's really hard because I grew up with her, I was in and out of foster care when I was little, and, she was in foster care with me for a bit of a time. And then when her and Bubba got together and I had moved back in with my mom, it was like I had a family, and it's hard for sure.
So what do you think really happened?
I was very confused on what I saw at first, what they were showing me, and then I heard the 911 call and saw the report, and I definitely think if she didn't pull the trigger, then she might as well have, and that's my opinion on it. And sister or not, if she's got something to do with it, she needs to be put away.
He lived here right at 5 years. Both of his sons still live here now, and his oldest son's fiance and their child. And this, nobody's home, however, but this was Randy's room. No, his bed's still there. His son Michael has turned it into his room, and he collects ball caps and records, so he's got ball caps and records on the wall. But other than that, everything is exactly the same.
And there's scratches on his face and bruising on his head. And in my opinion, my son was proud, and he was very loud. And in my opinion, of raising him, had he been going to do this, he'd have been up in her face. He wouldn't have been cowering in the floor but that behind his head, he would have had it right here or in his mouth. He wouldn't have politely laid down on the floor and covered up with a blanket. That was not my son.
And you as a mom, you know.
Yeah, without a doubt. I know he didn't do it, but I have no proof. And that's what hurts so bad, because it's been so many years.
No closure.
He's my first thought in the morning and my last thought at night.
There's 2 different statements in the 911 report that are not the same. She told 2 officers 2 different completely things. She said they were arguing, they were having an altercation, and one of them, she said that he was pacing back and forth, and the other one, she said he lies down on the floor and puts the gun to his head. She said they were arguing over her not wanting to have sexual encounters, and he did. Yes, okay, so we were in the funeral home after they came and got Randy, and this was just a couple days after, and everything was still so new to me, and I was still in shock and just trying to process what had happened. Well, I had rode with my cousin up there, and the funeral home director pulled us into the office and asked us to lay our phones down on the table. He said that it wasn't where Randy was shot that bothered him so bad, but it was what happened after Randy was shot. He suffered a GSW to the back of his temple and his right temple, and then he had a burn mark right next to where the bullet actually went in. So he brought it to my attention, and that was the first time I started suspecting something of not being right. And then once I left there, I went to the police station, and that's when I found out that she had never been questioned. She had never been questioned for gunshot residue. She had never been taken in. She just gave her statement there on site at his home that she had abandoned 6 or 8 months prior to.
I've talked to her a few times. I had to go help my mom move to North Carolina, and I saw her then. And before all that, she came to my house, and this was before like I knew everything and anything, and she had told me, she was like, do you want to know what happened? She was with this guy named Keegan, but she walked me outside of my own house, and she's like, you want to know what happened? And I was like, if you don't want to tell me, you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to tell me nothing. But she had told me that he was sitting on the side of his bed, putting the clip in and out, and then did it while she was standing in the doorway or the door frame of the bedroom. Make that make sense. The clip was found on the windowsill. I'm sorry, it's like, but hearing that story, looking at the report, hearing the 911 call, that did it for me. It was like, oh, now I understand what y'all are trying to say to me, because it's hard, you know, but yeah, it's a lot to process.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's their sister, you know, like it's hard. Were you close with Randy?
Yes, I was very close to him. Yeah, he was like a father figure to me, because, you know, we were all close. Like, I went here for Thanksgivings, I went to Mama and Papa's all the time. Like, yeah, it was definitely like a shock. I was an hour away from Cedartown trying to find a place to live for personal reasons, and my Skylar called me and told me the news, and yeah, it was we were screaming and crying on the phone. And yeah.
Did you see your sister that day?
That day, no. Mm-mm. But I did see her the day of the funeral, jumping on the cars, as a matter of fact. And I had to step in between my sister Emily and her and keep her from punching Emily, matter of fact. So, yeah. And then I had to call my old foster parents that were living right next to their house. And my old foster mom came down and was trying to calm Jessica down. And I don't remember if she got picked up after that or we just left. It's all a blur. But
Why was she going ballistic again?
drugs, definitely drugs, and probably guilt, if I could guess. Yeah, you would never expect it. And matter of fact, I looked at their relationship as like inspiration to me. Like, man, these people have gone through so much, you know.
Yeah.
And here they are thriving and getting closer to God. I would go to church with them all the time too. And it was just like, you know, smack in the face for sure for all of us.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah.
And you knew about the fact that she had that other guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Did Randy know about him?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what was it? Did you have any animosity, or were they?
I don't
Do you know?
I don't really know. You know, I was living my life trying to, you know, be a young mom, trying to put my life together as this was happening, and you know, I didn't know a lot until here recently. And that's the thing that really bugs us all, is the unanswered questions and how they handled it so poorly. And I believe that and higher up had something to do with it too, because I mean, if you look at the evidence, you know, it's hard not to question everything, you know.
He had told his cousin 2 months before this, that she was into some bad things, and that if something were to happen, would he take his kids? David was never able to have kids in his marriage, and wanted to know if something happened to him, would he be willing to take his kids and raise them as his own? And David told him yes. Well, David and his wife has since adopted them. They got them about 6 months after my son died. And it just hurts so bad for everybody to think that he committed suicide when I don't think he did. He had too much to live for. He loved them babies. And they were coming home Thanksgiving. She had called defects to come get them because she didn't want them anymore. And he came from Texas. He was working in Texas. And he came from Texas to get them babies when the welfare had picked them up. He just told me, Mama, please don't let them have my babies. We tried to get them, but the state had stepped in and they said that we couldn't have them because we would give them back to my son. And when he got back from Texas, he drove straight through. He was at the defects office when they opened up, and they did a drug screen on him, and he was clean. He was clean. And then he'd been going to court, but they said that he would not be able to get them back until he had started divorce proceedings, that Jessica was not able to be around him. He had visitations. He got FaceTimes and stuff with them, but she only did one FaceTime. She didn't comply with anything the whole time they were in the welfare system. And she was not going to ever be able to be back around him. And she since then has lost all rights to him. She can... they've changed their Social Security numbers. She used their Social Security numbers to open up accounts and stuff. They've adopted them, and they've since changed their Social Security numbers so they can't get a hold of them.
In the 911 call, it states 3 times the 911 operator asked her, did you move the gun? And all 3 times she says no. There is one point where she says it's on a pile of laundry and laughs. Okay, well, the first officer to arrive on the scene was Officer Hedman. And in her report, it states that As I arrived on the scene, I located whatever kind of firearm it was, and it says which had been moved to the bottom of the bed. She located the magazine clip in the windowsill. I questioned Pickens County about who moved the gun. They would not give me any answers. We have had meeting after meeting with Pickens County only to be hushed up, to be blown off. I had found a gun case in Jessica's car. I took a picture of it, took it up there to them. It is in the file, but they never came out and even investigated the gun case. My husband found the bullet that went through Randy's head. We were instructed by Detective Rice to put it was in a baggie. We were instructed to put it in an envelope with his name on it and take it to the police station. My mother and his oldest son took it directly up there with his name on it. It went missing. The captain of Pickens County now, Cagle, said that he had his guys overturn the evidence room, that it was not there. I called Detective Rice for several weeks asking about toxicology, and he kept telling me that it hasn't got in yet. They were backed up. It wasn't until about 6 months ago when I had requested another interview with Cagle that Cagle told me that there was never any toxicology ordered. His blood was never taken. He was never tested for gunshot residue on his hands. She was never tested. There was none ordered. There were 4 officers on the scene. I was advised at that last meeting that all 4 of them no longer work for Pickens County. I wasn't told why or where they were at, other than they were no longer with Pickens County. All 4 of them that were on scene that day.
What would you like to see happen moving forward with his case?
They need to reopen it and question Jessica, question my mother, question a lot of people.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Why did you, is there any particular reason?
Oh yeah, so I caught her in a few lies that did not make sense to me, So I might need a little help explaining parts of this, but I know what my mom said, so I'm gonna say that. So, my words. So they were going to pick up Jessica at the jail. She had gotten arrested for DUI with Bubba's truck, right? And this was the time that Jessica got in Mama's car and was rocking back and forth saying I wasn't a bad person. I brought that up to my mom, and she was like, oh, that's not true. I was in the car with them. She had never done that. And I was like, okay. I nonchalantly asked Amber, I was like, hey, was Mom in there? And she was like, hell no. Jessica was trying to get away from your mom. So why is Mom lying about that, right? And then she's lying about funeral arrangement stuff, like saying that Mama and Amber were trying to get Jessica to get Bubba cremated. And Jessica didn't want to do that. And she was like, well, fine then, And then Michael came in screaming, saying, I don't want my daddy cremated. And she told me the story, but flipped it, flipped the facts, And it makes me question my mom a lot, because before Amber even suspected anything, my mom's trying to keep Jessica away from everybody just like that. And that's a lot for me to say. Like, this is a lot on anyone, But yeah, I think my mom knows something, and I will stand by that.
Your biological?
Yeah, and which is also Jessica's mom. So we speak only because my sister's in North Carolina right now, and it's very. I wanted to keep in contact, trying to see if she would say anything to me, but she's definitely closed up, won't speak a word. She'll try to shift the blame to people, which is another weird thing. Like, why are you trying to shift blame on people unless you're guilty? And that's the way I look at it. Like I said before, sister or not, if she has something to do with this, which evidence speaks for itself, she needs to be turned in. And Bubba needs justice so we can move on and heal.
He said that he had his guys overturn the entire room, and the bullet was MIA. And that was the only evidence collected from the whole room, and that was from my husband, and we were told to bring it up there. They did no DNA testing. It says in the original police report, which I have, it's public access. The 911 call I have, it's public access. It states on there that no toxicology was performed, that they kept the blood, the body fluids, and whatever they take for up to a year. But by the time that I found out that there was no toxicology, a year, because this past October the 2nd has been 4 years since my brother has passed away. And I know it seems like a long time that I haven't done anything, but it has taken a couple years to heal, to even be able to talk about it. And then me and a friend of mine have been collecting evidence and getting information, getting reports, getting pictures, getting everything that we have. We actually have a binder of stuff. We've been working on that for the last year. And we're just now getting enough information together to get it put out so we can be heard.
So you guys had to do your own investigating, essentially.
Yes, I had went to the police station numerous times. I had went up there, I took a picture of his head that I took in the coffin after the funeral home director had told me that there was no way physically possible that he could have unalived himself. I took it up there. I took a picture of the gun case up there. I went up there numerous times, and just, they said they would get back with me. They would write a few notes. They would call me back. Nothing. I've had several meetings with the captain. This past time, about 6 months ago, I took the folder that we have had. I have statements from people that he had spoken to a day and a half prior to this. It was a lady I worked with. She had went and stayed the night with him. She told him, or he told Angela, that if anything happened to him, make sure Amber knew he didn't do it. I have her statement, her phone number. She said She would testify, she would talk to the police. I have statements from several different people. He said that I didn't have enough evidence to reopen the case, that it was all circumstantial, that nothing I had would hold any sort of ground unless I had an actual confession. His cell phone, I even have it. I retrieved it from his truck that she was left with at his home with his keys. She had got pulled over the following day for DUI and got taken to jail. Well, when they impounded his truck, I got his phone. And on his phone, I have live videos from the day after he passed. And you can almost put together a conversation, and it is her and another guy. I let the captain listen to that. He still wouldn't. All he could tell me that I needed to get a lawyer that would be willing to reopen this case. That this was all circumstantial. 4 months prior to this, there was an incident where she had called him wanting her clothes. So he gathered up all of her clothes, took them over there to her said boyfriend's house at the time. She wouldn't come to the door, so he kicked in the door. She called the cops, and they actually come and locked him up, and I went and bailed him out of jail. And so they had a family violence restraining order against each other. I also have that is in the files that I have collected, and it clearly states in there that they're not allowed to be around each other until they have went to court. Well, they hadn't went to court yet, so she shouldn't have even been at his house. And the fact that they, not only did they not take her in for questioning, the fact that they did not check her hand for gun residue, that they did not take any evidence whatsoever from his house, and her even stating that she had a boyfriend and had came to Randy's to reconcile, that should have been a big red flag. And then I later found the order as we were gathering the evidence this past year, to where she wasn't even allowed to be around him, and they still left her in his home. So no, she should not have had access to his phone. And actually, when you first turn on his phone, the last picture that was taken was of her. He was pronounced unalived at 3:00 p.m., October 2nd. The picture was taken October 2nd at 5:02. She is taking a picture of herself, and it is a reflection of her smiling. And she is taking it with his phone.
That was after? Or
this was after he passed. He was determined unalived at 3:00, and then at 5:02, she had taken a picture with his phone of her smiling.
a selfie in the mirror.
A selfie in the mirror.
How did her demeanor change after this happened? Did she seem remorseful? Did she offer condolences? Did something change?
Well, me, my mom, and my husband, as well as her mom and her aunt, had met the following Monday at the jailhouse to get her out of jail before we could even make funeral arrangements for my brother, since technically they were still married. When Jessica was arrested Saturday, she was charged with DUI. So we know she was under the influence. When I picked her up that Monday, she was real distraught. She did not want to be around her mom or her aunt. She wanted to be right beside me. And so she climbs in the back seat with me as we're going over to the funeral home. And she crosses her legs and puts her hands over her ears. And she starts shaking back and forth, and she keeps repeating, "I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person." Well, I take and put my arm around her and say, "Of course, Jessica, you're not a bad person." Keep in mind, this is only a couple of days had passed. I had not put together what had happened. I don't even know if I had processed what had happened at this time. And then she made the funeral arrangements. She had me stay in the room with her the whole time. None of her family except 2 of her sisters and her mom came to his funeral. She did not even show up at his funeral. She was back at his house, jumping up and down on her vehicle, acting like a maniac the day of his funeral.
And no, they never did a polygraph on her?
No, she was never taken in for questioning. They never did a polygraph. The only thing they done was question her at the house that day on scene. They got 2 different statements from her, and neither one of them match up. She tells 2 different stories. They didn't check for gunshot residue. They left her with Randy's keys, Randy's wallet, everything, Randy's truck at his home.
Wow. And over the years, have you kept in touch with Jessica?
No. She has tried to she reached out about a year ago, and I kind of freaked out when I got the message, and then it took me till the next day, and she messaged me back. So I actually did talk to her, because I thought maybe if I talk to her, she will at least let me know what happened that day. She was more like a sister to me than she was a sister-in-law. We were very, very close family. She even worked with me at one point. I was there for the birth of both of their sons. They were either over here every day, or we were over there every day, or at our parents' cooking out and swimming in the summertime, having a cookout. We were just a very close family. So I thought if I could talk to her, that she would open up. So for about 3 weeks, she talked to me. She would FaceTime me every morning. She wanted to meet me at Golden Corral, which I agreed to do. And then the last day I spoke to her was on June the 9th, 2023. And I had sent her the picture of Randy in the coffin, and she said, "Do you actually think I shot him, Amber?" And I said, I'm not saying that you actually pulled the trigger, but I know you were there, Jessica. And she got down on, she dropped to her knees immediately and started shaking back and forth and crying. And she just kept repeating, I swear I did not pull the trigger. I swear to you, Amber, I did not pull the trigger. After that phone call, she blocked me. A couple days later, I heard from her sister that she had left rehab and she had been clean for 14 months prior to talking to me and receiving that photo of him in the coffin that she had no idea I had. And that is the last contact I have had with her. For the first 6 years, you could not have asked for a more perfect couple, so to speak. They would go to church. Jessica's sisters never really had a great bringing up, so Jessica's sisters they were younger than Jessica, and they spent a lot of time over at Jessica's and Randy's as well. And he became more like a role model, a father figure, a big brother figure to Michaela and Emily. They went to church on Sundays. We had a lot of family time. They had 2 children together. They had a very happy marriage. And I'd never seen any red flags, ever, until about 6 or 8 months prior to this happening when they split up. And she totally changed. Just looking at her, she didn't even look the same. She literally changed from daylight to dark. I know she was back on drugs. She had been arrested for possession of drugs. We live in a very small county. Everybody knows everybody's business. Her boyfriend at the time was a well-known drug dealer, and she got back on dope, and that is what changed her. But the first 6.5 years, it was almost perfect. They should have at least questioned her. All suicides are, we have done a lot of research, like I said, and there's an article that I pulled up, the 7 to-dos of a suicide. And even when it is a textbook suicide, it has to be treated as a homicide until proven otherwise. All evidence has to be taken in. None of that was done. When they left, they said it was a suicide. She was left on the premises, not even supposed to have been there to begin with. Her stating that she had a boyfriend, her and her boyfriend had an argument, her and Randy had been split up. Then there was the protection order, the family violence order, where they could not be around each other. And they still left her there, never tested her for gunshot residue, never took her into the police station, did not get anything from the crime scene, even left the gun itself there. My nephew, his son, has the gun. The only thing they took was the magazine clip, or did they even take it? Oh, they took the gun, but we got it. It was released back to us. But the gun and the clip was the only thing they took from the scene. The blanket where he was unalived, the clothes, the towel he had been laying on was all still there. for my husband to pick up. There were no fingerprints done on the gun. The gun wasn't even bloody at all. It has one picture of the gun in the police report, and it's as clean as a whistle. There's a small speck of gun, or of blood, it looks like on a white cloth where the gun was laying. There's a small speck of blood. But other than that, the gun was clean. The bedroom was clean. There was a small amount of blood that had run off both sides of the cover, but other than that, there was no blood on the walls. There was no blood anywhere. We even, me and the one that was my friend that's been helping investigate it, went and got luminoled the room ourselves. She has she has friends and stuff in law enforcement, and was able to get luminol, and we went and luminoled it ourselves. There was no blood splatter anywhere in the room. The only thing that glowed was the carpet. And all we're asking is that Pickens County reopen this case and investigate. That's all we want, is to find out the truth as to what happened that day so we can finally heal. It has been 4 years since this has happened, and no family should have to go through what we have gone through. Every day we wake up and have to not only relive the fact that he's gone, but I feel that we can't heal because we don't have closure. We never had any answers. Nothing was ever done. And all we wanted, we're not pointing fingers at anybody. We just want an investigation. That is all we're asking for. Just a proper investigation, instead of him just being left on the side of the road like a dead possum or something. Just thrown to the side because we live in a small county. That's what it feels like. Yes. We have been looking at lawyers. We have tried every lawyer. You know, a lot of lawyers do pro bono and free consultations. I can't find anyone that is willing to take this case to go up against Pickens County. And we live paycheck to paycheck. So obviously, you know, we can't afford $15,000, $20,000 or whatever the amount it would be to actually hire a big-time lawyer that would get this case reopened for us. And that is all we want done, is just it investigated so we can have the closure we need to find out what actually happened on October the 2nd, 2020, so we can heal and move on from this, so my brother can finally rest in peace.
You can keep talking.
She pointed out to us in the picture of his whole body laying there that a cigarette lighter and his key fob had fallen and was laying on his lap. So that tells me that he had the gun, or it was in his right hand. How could he hold the gun and a key fob and a lighter all and hold the gun back here and shoot himself? It's just so many unanswered questions, and I just like to know the truth. There's days I don't even function, and they say it'll get better, but it hasn't for me. I just want to know the truth. I don't know that she did it, but I know she knows who did. And I think we deserve at least an investigation to find out what did happen.
I'm barely functioning. And a lot of things to this day are blurry. The first 2 weeks, I can't remember. I can't even remember for the life of me what I wore to the funeral home, or who was there, or who sung. A lot of it I've just blocked out. But she was one of the first ones to point out the very next day that this had a lot of red flags, that there was definitely something wrong. We were drinking and he was jumping on the trampoline and he busted his head up. Oh no! And I fixed him.
Do it again, do it again, do it again.
Here to heaven, because that was, just something he would say. I love you, sis, from here to heaven, just so.